In this video I want to show you guys one of my favorite Karlach builds in Baldur's Gate 3. What makes this build so good is the versatility. I love builds that can do a bit of everything, and this build lets her be super strong in close range combat, as well as having the ability to throw for ranged combat too. Now the build is a level 5 Berserker Barbarian, a level 3 Rogue Thief, and a level 4 Eldritch Knight Fighter. And now for the rest of the video, I'll spend breaking down this build more in depth and explain why I chose the specific class levels I did. So the first 5 levels I put into a Berserker Barbarian. Barbarian is Karlach's default class, and it makes sense to keep it that way to me. The Barbarian will give Karlach the ability to fight well in close quarters combat. And now let's take a look at each level's breakdown. So at level 1, I put her straight into a Barbarian. I like to respec her stats to throw everything into Strength, Constitution, and Dexterity. 17 strength is crucial since she'll be getting a total of 20 strength later on in the build, so you don't want it any less than 17. 15 dexterity helps give her a little bit of a bonus to initiative and also gives her a little proficiency to help bump up her AC. When you manage to put mage armor on her, it really helps it out. And that reminds me, I always throw mage armor on her. It raises her base AC to 13 and adds her dexterity modifier, and free AC is always nice. Finally, the Constitution, I like to run 16 since that gives her a good bit of health while also allowing her to add her Constitution modifier to her armor class. So this along with mage armor and dexterity modifier gives her a decent bit of AC also. Right now my Karlach has 17 armor class, which is pretty decent considering she isn't wearing any armor and there's no other items impacting this besides one. And this item is called the Bracers of Defense that gives an extra 2 bonus AC as long as you aren't wearing armor or holding a shield. So this is the item I love to use with Karlach always. Level 2 is pretty straightforward. You gain your Reckless Attack, which is going to be a key ability for our future combos to set up for high damage. And level 3 is when we get to pick our subclass for Barbarian. I always go with Berserker Barbarian for this build. This gives her the Frenzy Rage, which adds a bunch of versatility to her. And as I mentioned earlier, that's the name of the game when it comes to this build. For starters, it gives her the ability to make another melee weapon attack as a bonus action, which this is super useful and has a lot of potential for quick burst damage. I often find myself in situations where I don't want to use a potion or a poison, and other bonus actions aren't relevant in the current situation I find myself in. And this sometimes leads to me just making my actions and skipping my bonus action. I don't like this since it makes me feel like I left potential value on the table. But with this subclass, I can use a bonus action to get another melee attack or throw a weapon for extra damage. Which leads me to the second part of why we picked Berserker and the main reason, which is the Enraged Throw ability. Here we can use a bonus action to throw something at the enemy to do damage, and this is going to be our bread and butter on this build in terms of applying extra damage. This allows Karlach to now be able to fight at range effectively, so if there's an enemy close by, she can use her melee attacks during the action phase, plus an extra frenzy attack with a bonus action, or she can sit back and use her actions to throw, and also use her bonus actions to throw again, which lets her fight at range. Or you can do a combo of the two, where you use your actions for your melee attack and bonus actions to throw to a different enemy. Now at level 4 we get to choose our first feat, and for this we're going to go with the simple ability improvement. This will let us put 2 points into an ability that we want. And we're just going to put both points into strength, bringing it up from 17 to 19. And this is going to help us for the future to set up for 20 strength later on. So we definitely want the extra 2 here. And now we're at level 5 Barbarian, where we get our extra attack, which is so great, and that's the reason why we're taking Barbarian up to level 5, just so we can get this. In addition, she gets an extra 3 meters of movement speed, which is always a nice touch too. And now that's it for the Barbarian portion of her. At level 6, we're going to start taking her into a Rogue. So we're going to put the skill proficiency in Sleight of Hand, since the ability to steal items is always nice to have, and skill expertise in athletics and sleight of hand. But you can really choose any skill and it'll be fine. This is just what I personally like to do. Level 1 Rogue doesn't do too much for us, especially since she isn't going to be the party face. At level 7 we're going to put your second level into Rogue. And now this is when things really start to get interesting. We get our sneak attack now and the ability to use dash, disengage, and hide as a bonus action. Now remember how I said earlier that I felt like I left value on the table by not always being able to use a bonus action? Well, now not only can we use our frenzy abilities as bonus actions, we can also use these rogue abilities. And this lets her be super versatile and have a wide variety of tools at her disposal. In every situation, there will be at least one bonus action move that will be useful for that situation you find yourself in. And that's what makes this so great. There isn't value being left on the table, and we're able to put our bonus actions to work. Now the other great thing about this level is now we get to use sneak attack. And Barbarian already has reckless attack, which gives her advantage on her attacks, and sneak attack is usable when you have advantage on your attacks. You can probably see where I'm going with this one. It makes for a great synergy. At level 8 we get to pick our rogue subclass, and here I go with the thief. And this is for the pure reason it gives us extra bonus actions. Now that we can get a ton of value out of our bonus actions, I want to make sure we can use them even more. Especially since the enraged throw we can do twice now on top of our 2 melee attacks or throw attacks with an action, which gives us 4 total damage dealing attacks in the same turn. And I find this to be super great, or even if you need a dash to reposition, you can still use one of your attacks as a bonus action. It basically just gives more versatility to our kit and makes the bonus actions that much more valuable. What I really love is how the bonus actions basically turn into mini actions and how effective they become. And now at level 9, the last 4 levels are going to be into an Eldritch Knight fighter or a Battle Master fighter. And I want to preface this by saying the Eldritch Knight is so that we can bind our main hand weapon to throw so it can return to us. If you already have a weapon like the returning pike or a different weapon that can be thrown and then returned to you automatically, then you would want to go for the Battle Master. But if you don't have a weapon that can be a designated thrown weapon, then Eldritch Knight lets you bind your main hand weapon to be your thrown weapon. Either way, the build is the same for the first 2 fighter levels here. So the fighter is super nice, since at level 1 fighter we get to use the second wind ability, allowing us to heal ourselves in combat with, guess what? A bonus action. On top of this, we also get to pick a fighting style. And for this I like to go with great weapon fighting. This makes it way harder to roll a 1 or 2 when attacking with 2-handed weapons, which increases our overall damage output. At level 10, our level 2 fighter will be able to use Action Surge. Now remember how I said if we use our frenzy attacks, we can potentially get 4 attacks per turn? Now with Action Surge, we can get another 2 action attacks, making this 6 total attacks in 1 turn. Now this can only be used once per short rest, but this gives us some serious burst damage potential, and is part of why the fighter addition to this build is so great. At level 11, we're going to get our fighter subclass. Now here, if you need a thrown weapon, go Eldritch Knight. This will let you bind your weapon to be thrown and automatically returned to you. This way when you throw your weapon for attacks, you don't have to find it and pick it back up. For the cantrips, always get Boom and Blade. And then the other one you can get whatever you want. I personally like to use Firebolt so I can set explosive barrels on fire. But Boom and Blade is another reason why Eldritch Knight makes this build super good. Now after you attack them, if they move afterwards on their next turn, they take damage just from simply moving. This basically gives you the potential to have an extra attack because it does decent damage to the enemy on top of the base melee damage, as long as they move in their turn. And on top of that, it's a cantrip, which means it can be used for free every single turn. Now this gives you options since you can use sneak attacks or Boom and Blade. Again, that's the name of the game when this comes to this build. Versatility and always making sure you have the right tool for the situation you may find yourself in. And Boom and Blade is a tool I love to have on my Karlach. For spells, don't worry about mage armor since you can have a camp wizard apply mage armor to you so you don't have to waste a spell slot. But make sure you grab shield. We won't be using our spell slots for dealing damage on this build, which means they can be used for other things. And shield lets you use a spell slot as a reaction to add 5 AC to protect yourself from an attack. This is super nice since again, it's a tool that can keep you safe from an attack. And you can choose to spend this shield when you feel like you need it most. But the fact you have this as an option to use and knowing you don't need to save your spell slots for other things is just super useful in helping Karlach become more tanky. I also like to add a magic missile as my second spell, because if someone's low, I want to guarantee I finish them off. Magic missile is a great spell for that. But I still would only use my spell slots for shield since it's that useful. But again, magic missile is a nice tool to have in case the situation calls for one. And then the final spell you can just take whatever you want. For the Battle Master route, you get access to super strong maneuvers. The 3 I like to use here are Disarm an attack to knock a weapon out of the enemy's hand, Menace an attack so that you can frighten the enemy, and Trip attack so you can knock them prone. These can all be used to apply some extra utility to your basic attacks, which is always nice since these 3 are flexible enough to use in a variety of situations. At level 12 and fighter level 4, we get our second feat. Here we'll want to take Tavern Brawler. It allows us to add our strength modifier to our throw-in attacks, and also lets us increase our strength by 1 point, which brings it up to level 20. This way our throw attacks become super strong, and it makes Karlach an all-around beast at max level. Thanks for watching my Karlach build. If you enjoyed this and found it interesting, please leave a like since it helps support the channel. I also want to take a second to say thank you to everyone who helped me get to 50 subs. It really does mean a lot, and I'm having a lot of fun growing this channel with all of you. And I'll see you all in the next video.